Hey everybody, David Costello here, founder and CEO of Jetpack Workflow and host of Growing Your Firm podcast. Today's guest, returning guest that is Rob Nixon. Recently wrote a book called The Wealthy Accountant, which we're going to dig into. And Rob has been spending the last 26 years helping a number of accounting firms really just elevate their output, elevate their profitability, their productivity. Full disclosure, I even attended a workshop Rob put on in Washington, D.C., 2 years ago or something like that. So I had the privilege of meeting him in person 3 years ago. Hey, we're in pandemic time. It could have been 30 years ago. Who knows? But all that to say, super excited. Rob decided to join us and jump on today to chat through, some of the framework, some of the questions, critical questions that firms should be asking themselves, and some of the rules that he feels they should live by. But all that to say, Rob, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, David. And interesting to talk about the new book, The Wealthy Accountant. This is all I have of it. I don't even have a physical copy yet, right? I can print one out, but it's gone. Actually, this week it's gone #1 on Amazon, which is pretty cool. And they're moving like hotcakes. So I'm just waiting to get one in my hands. So this is book number 4, and make sure that we're giving them away for free right now. I just want every single, as many as possible, accountants around the world to get it and just absorb it. So there you go. There's no money in that plug.
Yeah, awesome. And look, we're going to link it up at the Jetpack Workflow blog.
Cool.
So if people want to take advantage of that, we'll be promoting that out. And we could talk about links and URLs at the end. But really quick, before we get into some of the questions, some of the rules that firm owners should really think about as they're designing their firm. And look, we're in 2020. Maybe you're listening to this in 2022. I don't care what year it is, but this year might be more critical than ever to think about, how do I want to design my firm? But before we dig into that, can you introduce the audience? Maybe they didn't hear the first interview. Maybe they haven't come across all the books you've written. What do you do? Who do you help? How do you help them?
Yeah, so my life work has been accounting firms. I'm not an accountant, but in May 1994, I started working with accountants. Fast forward 26 years, and I've trained 185,000 accountants in 18 countries. I've built companies around that. I've personally coached over 500 firms, added more than 910 million in profit to those ones. Spoken at about 2,000 industry events. For all these years, David, my life has been accountants. These days, very specific. We're going to talk about design it your way. I decided 2 years ago that I wanted to do the thing that I love the most, which is coaching firms. I still speak at a few events, but that's not the main thing. Decided to build a coaching business just to help, firms who really are ambitious firms and decent, good firms now, but who want to grow. And the promise, if you like, is I want to help, and I do believe this is a necessity. Partners of accounting firms make more than $1 million profit per year and work less than 500 hours, right? Because I see that partners of firms, they work too many hours, right? Crazy hours, and they don't make enough money for how smart they are and the value that they add. So with a small number of firms, the content in the book for sure, but for a small number of firms, I'm helping them do that.
Perfect. And, it's a great segue into, talking about some of the things you wrote up in the book. You mentioned, I don't know if you want to start with the questions. You said there's some critical questions that, if you're listening right now and you're in a place where you feel a little bit stuck or you just want to elevate. I find that firm owners that are great firm owners, they're always looking to understand how to elevate. So we can start with the questions, or we can start with the rules. It's up to you. I'll give you kind of a blank slate of what direction to start in.
Yeah, okay, so let's do this. Let's have a look at redesigning this accounting firm your way, right? So first of all, I find when I meet a firm, and I've met tens of thousands of them, of course, most of them are business by default. It's just happened, right? They've either split out from a larger firm and to start their own firm. They've either bought into an existing firm. They've grown up through the ranks. Now they're a partner of the firm. Either way, they've got this firm. And the firm typically is a practice. It's a practitioners practicing. It's got a bunch of clients in there. It's got a range of clients. It's got maybe 100 different, sometimes 100 different industry types in the client base. It's got a range of systems. It's got multiple ways of doing the same thing. It's just happened. The business has just happened, typically by referral for new clients, and that's what you've got, right? You've got this business that's got people in there that may or not should be in there, systems in there, pricing processes in there, workflow, your bag, David, just multiple ways of doing everything. So it's a business by default. That's typically the starting mark that I see a firm. And so most firms I meet, and maybe there's many more that I don't meet, are typically unhappy with parts of what's going on, right? It could be unhappy with the monetary reward. It could be unhappy with the work time frame, like too much work. Could be unhappy with the workflow, the way that the operation actually works. Whatever it is, there's a degree of unhappiness with a degree of ambition as well when I get to speak with them. And I'm sure, I don't get to speak with them all, of course. I'm sure there's many, many out there who are yearning for something better, a better life through this accounting firm.
Yeah, and what we found, I mean, we've done all these interviews, we work with a number of firms through Jetpack, is, when you're starting out, you're just trying to figure out how to survive. You really just want to make sure you have enough revenue, by extension profit, to pay your bills. And maybe you've given yourself 3 or 6 or 12 months of runway to figure it out. And so you just start running with it. And we've just seen it time and time again. And it's incredibly common. Whatever you do in that first year becomes the default, just like you said. And what happens is you keep stacking. Oh, well, we need a new system. We need a new price. And all of a sudden you have this evolutionary, accidental system that has 7 eyeballs and 2 mouths and 10 ears. And you're like, I kind of created Frankenstein. And you never feel like that in the day-to-day. It never feels like you're creating a Frankenstein. But you wake up 3 years later and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm making my revenue is $1 million a year. This is the dream goal I've always had for my firm. And I'm not happy. You know what I mean? And obviously I think this is kind of where your sweet spot is like you've hit a milestone, something's broken, and you have to hit through a new ceiling to get to the next spot of enjoyment. You bet.
So it starts with, a degree of unhappiness before change is going to happen, right? Or a degree of, I want something much, much better. I believe I'm much, much better than this. So then with that, we'll start there. Let's redesign it, right? And the assumption is that let's have a blank sheet of paper, right? Let's start with the euphemistic blank sheet of paper. The challenge with what I'm about to take your listeners through, David, is that they don't have a blank sheet of paper, right? They already have a hodgepodge of clients, the term orphan 1040s, these little tiny income tax return clients, right through to a 30, 50 grand client, which they love working with. So, and everything in between, right? So, but if we can just dream for a minute, I've got a blank sheet of paper, and I'd like your listeners to write down 5 questions, and I'll unpack them one at a time to redesign this business so it's business by design. Because the activities, the tactics, the strategies underneath this make more sense when these 5 questions are answered. And question 1, very selfish process this, by the way. Selfish in the fact that I believe that, as the business owner, the partner, you're taking all the risk, right? It's your signature, it's your mortgage on your house, it's your credit card, you're the one that gets sued, you're the last one standing, right? Every team member you've got will leave. They all leave at some point in time. So let's take a very selfish approach with business design, right? So that's the context.
Okay, and the reason you saw me smiling a little bit, because I think, look, I find myself in this time to time. Absolutely, right? It's that if you come across as too selfish, then you've made a misstep as a leader or manager or the idealized business owner that you think you should be. But I'll tell you what, and I don't even, we're about to both explore these 5 questions, but if you don't ask yourself what you really want, or, we're going to dig into these questions, you become unhappy, you show up in your leadership, it shows up in your team, it shows up in your clients. So by trying to be the Mother Teresa of accounting firm owners, you end up shooting yourself in the foot if you don't start thinking, at least about what you want. So anyway, sorry to interrupt. I just had to add the context.
David, what happens is that the business ends up becoming a charitable bank, right? And a kindergarten daycare center, right? So we don't want that, right? So let's start, right? Question 1. What do you want your business life to look like? Your professional working life partner, right? This is reflection time. What do you want it to look like? So for example, the work that you personally do, what do you want to do? Because you've got a choice here, right? You can choose to pump out your 2,000 hours a year of chargeable time, or you can choose to have zero chargeable time. Up to you, right? You can choose to be the firm administrator or choose not to, right? You can choose to only work with this type of client, right? Up to you. You can choose to only work at this level of margin, right? I'm not going to touch a job until, unless it's this, right? So, whether that be an hourly rate margin or a fee type margin, whatever it is, you can choose to say, I only want to do this. What is your business life, your ideal business life? How many vacations do you want? How much travel do you want around that? We'll get to the money in a bit later on, but just you, how do you want to work? Because we're not saying that you're not going to work, but how do you want to work? So 2 years ago, when I asked myself these 5 questions 2 years ago, one of mine was, you know what? Because under these questions are all your rules, your business rules. One of mine was, look, I want to work from Australia. I live in Australia, but I want to work in the United States, but I only want to work this amount, and I'm only going to spend, maximum 20% of the year working. So, and I'll just get a little prop here, David. Which is, how much time spending working on the business versus in the business, right? There you go. I am getting a haircut today.
There you go. So yeah, if anybody's listening, obviously it's a hat. I don't know if you invented that hat. I don't know if it's your design.
I did, yeah.
On the front it says in, on the back it says out, right? Yeah.
No, on.
I'm sorry, on. I'm sorry, on is forward and then in is, yeah.
Yeah. So we'll leave that on for the rest of the thing. So business life. What do you want your business life to look like? And really in detail, right? We were chatting before about my property here. I bought this property 3 years ago, but 2 years ago I asked myself those 5 questions. And part of business life was, I want to build a golf course, which I've gone and done, right? And the sun is just coming up now. So
yeah, we were joking that, the interesting thing about you, Robin, where we're going with these questions is you asked yourself these questions and you said, what is my idealized life? And I'm assuming there was, I want to build a golf course for myself.
Yeah.
And there's a whole video of it, and we could link it up in the blog. But I mean, this is like 9 holes, 10? I'm not.
So that what you're looking at on the video now, that's the first tee off the deck of the clubhouse, right? So it's a giant green with 9 tee boxes. It's 27-hole configuration. It's a lot of fun. It's probably the best backyard golf course in the world, right? Probably. And Golf Digest has picked it up. They would have been exclusive on. Anyway, different story. So, but that was part of it for me. I want to build a clubhouse. I want to work from here. Business life, right? Question 2. So you decide in detail. Question 2. What do you want your numbers to be? Numbers, right? So numbers like revenue, profit, hours, average hourly rate, number of clients, average fee per client. Forget what you've got right now, because the future is all, you can design it whatever way you want to do it, right? So numbers. I believe that partners of accounting firms should make at least $1 million profit per year after tax and work less than 500 client hours. I believe that the average hourly rate, the margin or the yield for the work done should be at least $500 for the whole firm. And I believe that, when it comes to numbers, that if you follow the context of that you believe that all clients should be buying all services that they need that helps them achieve their goals, then the average fee per client should be well north of 25 grand, even pushing 50 grand. I've got some firms that are averaging 80,000 a client. So you set the numbers. This is what I want, right? And I'm not going to work for anything less than that. And when it comes to people, you're sort of unpacking numbers and revenue. Revenue per full-time equivalent person should be pushing 500,000. It may be 150,000 right now, but so you might want a $10 million firm. We only need 25 or 30 folks to help you do that, right? Sometimes 20. You want a $2 million firm. You don't need any more than half a dozen people to do that, right? So numbers. What do you want even other numbers, accounts receivable numbers, what your monthly recurring revenue, all these numbers. That's what I want the numbers to look like, and because the tactics and the strategies are there to be done, right? I've seen it so many times that no matter what number you dream up, it can be done. Like I coached a sole practitioner. When I met him, here's an interesting story on what's possible. When I met this particular sole practitioner, there's about $1 million in revenue, 350 in profit. Fast forward, this is now 9 years later. He does 17 million in revenue and about 8 million profit. Still a sole practitioner, right? Those are some good numbers. And he doesn't work that hard either.
Yeah. And what's that, just to unpack that scenario, what do you say he doesn't work that hard? So, I mean, I don't know if you know the numbers offhand, but even at a gut level, what's
600
that?
hours a year.
600 total? Like, or is that not total?
Oh, no. So let's talk the in hours versus the on hours, right?
Yeah.
So the in hours is doing the client work. The on hours is growing the business. So 600, right? I'll give you two examples. There's one, and I've got an equation around this called profit time index, which is take your profitability and then divide the working in time into that to see what number you get. So working in time is client delivery work, management of the firm, administration, etc. You know, anything, add all that up, divide that into your profit, and you'll get a number. So Paul's is 10,000 per hour. It's more than 10,000 because it's about 8 million profit, about 600 hours. Let me tell you about a firm in Kentucky. You know, Mackie, she just put out her most recent book called The Prosperity Playbook. Awesome book, by the way, a client of mine. She works literally all in 100 hours a year. All hours, working and on. Doesn't do any client delivery work.
Wow.
But she's making hundreds of thousands in profit. You know, so the work-life balance. So you picked up, so question 2 is numbers, right? What numbers do you want? Question 3, and these are in order, by the way. Question 3, what products and services do you want to deliver? Just because the government says the client needs to do a 1040 doesn't mean you need to do it, right? Just because the client wants something, it doesn't mean you need to do it. What's going to be your products? The absolute sweet spot of product delivery. You know, accountants may record time, which I encourage, but most of them sell time, which I discourage, right? You're not in the time business, you're in the intellectual property business. You sell what you know. So what do you want to sell? Like, if you want to be 100% advisory, then do that. If you want wealth management, then do that. If you want as a mandated, you know, I've got a firm that mandated their clients that they must buy these products or service, otherwise not a client of the firm anymore. And they did. They visited 256 clients. 130 of them said, I don't want that. They said, no worries, see you later. Here's a referral of a guy down the road, right? But they dropped 130 clients, didn't sell them, gave them away, but their average fee per client went to 26,000 because this is the product that you must buy, right? So number 3 is products that you want to sell and deliver. What is it? That's the third one.
Well, to dig into the third one a little bit, I know we have 2 more to go, but you know, do you find this, like, you know, so one of the objections I can see coming up is like, I'm not really sure what is the right service suite that the client must have. Is that a realistic objection, or are they just nervous to put a foot in the sand and say you have to buy it?
Yeah. So that particular firm, 2-partner firm, 256 clients, you know, I cajoled them to say, look, first of all, what do you believe every client needs, right? And they said, well, as a minimum, of course, the compliance work, but they need a forecast, like a budget and cash flow forecast, right? And there's $5,000 a year right there or more. Depends how you do it. And if it's a rolling forecast, a proper rolling forecast. And third, we need to meet with them every quarter on that forecast and keep them accountable to see how they're going, right? So some advisory. So immediately,
just to jump from a client's perspective, like that's easily worth 5 figures a year.
Easy, right?
Oh my gosh.
Two or $3,000 a month right there, right? For that. So, and that's what happened to them. They went to 26,000 average, right? So if you take it from the client point of view, the clients you've helped the most, what do you deliver to them, right? And what do you enjoy delivering? And I believe as a minimum, a business owner should have a budget and cash flow forecast as a minimum, and up to date and monitored and advised around and accountable around that, you know, to meet with the accountant to show them all up. Like David, here's an example, right? So this COVID, whenever you're listening to this, we are filming and recording this in the middle of the pandemic, right? We're about, 6 weeks in, I suppose, David?
Anywhere between 6 weeks and 6 years. That's how long it's
Yeah,
been so
it seems like that. Yeah. So in the last 6 weeks, accountants have had more communication with their clients than they ever had in the last 6 years, right? It has been insane. And the clients love it. There's been emails, there's been webinars, there's been phone calls, there's been tools and templates, there's been models, there's been forecasts, there's been loan applications. It's like piled on the communication, the clients love it. Well, hey, shouldn't they be doing that anyway, right? Far out.
Yeah, and look, what's interesting about what you said too, just to unpack it a little bit more. I've been hearing this spiel. You've been hearing for probably even longer. Is we all got to go to advisory. Okay, you're an accountant, you have to be an advisor. I mean, you just broke down. I think was kind of like the basic toolkit of moving into advisory. You have this forecast, you have cash flow forecast, you have it rolling, you have a check-in every quarter, you revise it, you monitor it, you help them understand industry benchmarks, and the only thing I'll ask about that, I know we're getting some of the tactics. We have some more questions to go through. Is why do you think accounting firms don't do forecasts or do quarterly conversations? And I know this is maybe going to get into I don't want us to turn into a psychologist on the interview, but are they worried that they don't know enough about the forecast, or they're worried about pushing their clients and saying, look, I know you and I know your business and I know you could do better. Are they worried about becoming too confrontational with this? Because to me, it's just such a great toolkit that triples their revenue.
So and with the software these days, there's so many software apps out there that can help you do it really fast. There's a scaredness in it because of the following, right? As with the advisory topic, right? I'm scared to do it deep down, right? I know the clients want it. It's easy to sell, right? Stay close to the numbers. The scaredness is, what if they ask me a question that I don't know the answer to? Right? That is the underlying problem here, because all of a sudden you're flipping from reactive historical, history writing, if you like, right? Writing up historical reports, through to proactive, looking at cash flow forecast numbers, etc. What if they ask me something that I don't know the answer to? So let's just not do it at all, right? So here's how you get around that in your head, right? Stay close to the numbers. Don't go into strategic advice about manufacturing products, right? Don't go into sales consulting advice. Don't go into marketing advice. Don't go into team performance. It's not your bag. But if you stay close to the numbers accountants, right, as your product, numbers-based advice, and you're the number one in numbers, you know more about numbers, balance sheets, and the ebbs and flows. You can do inventory management numbers, you can do, accounts receivable numbers, you can do payables numbers, expense reduction numbers. Stay close to that stuff, because your client knows how to make the product, sell the product. They know how to run their business. You're not talking about running their business. Stay close to the numbers. If you do that, then your product becomes much clearer.
Yeah, I guess even, on that concern, the business owner comes to you and they say, what if blah, da, 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 da. And you say, okay, what if we launch a new product? What would it take to launch a new product? What do you think of us? Here's the most dangerous question. Maybe this is the biggest worrisome question. Hey, what do you think if we launch a new product? And kind of what you're saying is, as an accountant, say, well, you know the business better than I do. But I could tell you that if you tell me what you plan on pricing the product, how much product you need, how you're going to source it, I could plug that into the model, and we can run through some cash flow scenarios.
Correct. Or I can plug it into the model to see how much working capital you need to do what you do.
Right.
You want to release this new product, called an iPhone, right? And well, okay, to do that, let's have a look at the cost of that. Let's have a look at the runway that you've got right now. Let's have a look. And so you model it out. And again, you're still advising, staying close to numbers. And it's stay there. Really important with your product.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you going on that, because people need to figure it out. All right. Number four.
What culture do you want for your firm? Culture/team. So this is a wide and varied topic on people, right? And behavior. Here we have, in this pandemic, all these accounting firms work from home. Is that the culture you want? Like, I work from home, but my home's pretty cool. I've got this clubhouse arrangement going on, and some I think coming out of this pandemic, you know, well, that sort of worked. You know, why don't we do more of that? You know, so we're going to ask some rhetorical questions around people and then tell a quick story. You know, why do the people need to be local? You know, this pandemic has taught you how to have a borderless firm. You know, if you look at, you've had an office, most listeners have had an office with people that attend an office. The clients have attended the office, and all of a sudden, you know, Zoom's getting to work out right now. And, you know, maybe we can have the clients from a distance. You know, does the team need to be in this country? Maybe we could have a team, you know, in the Philippines, which I love, or India. You know, I've got a firm I'm talking to next week from Belgium that's got people in Pakistan working for them out of Belgium. Cool, right? You know, what culture, behavior, right? So location of people, style of people, you pick. Like, I'm led to believe that the US accounting profession employs about 1 million people, right? That's a lot of humans. Surely you can find your 10, 15, or 20 good ones, like the best players, right? Only A-class players of a specific type that you want. So many years ago, I had a team of 16, and I had an absolute shocking year for people. I had 26 people movements in the 1 year. Like, this was a shocker. And at the end of the year, I thought, okay, there's a problem here, right? And the fish rots from the head down. I'm the problem. What I realized was I'd never defined what my culture was. So over the weekend, I wrote down 15 culture statements and 15 service standard statements. Culture statements of internal behavior, service standards of external behavior with clients.
And what were some examples from each one, if you could remember those?
Okay, sure. Let's say service one. I answer the phone within 2 rings and with a smile, and I say exactly this, right? People would run to the phone. Once I trained them how to do that, run to the phone, because the service standard was, we're going to answer the phone this way. Service standard, I greet everyone by name and by farewell as well. See you, David. You know, great to see you, David. And by eye contact and with a smile, right? You know, service standards, behavior standards. You know, internally, you know, I will speak with someone only in private if it's an issue, not in public. I fired someone because of that one, right? They blasted someone in the public area. So the behavior, what ideal behavior do you want? What location? So, you know, as an example, 2 years ago when I asked myself these 5 questions, one of them was, I don't want an office. I've had offices. I've had people come to the office. I want to build a virtual business, as in people wherever they are is where they work, right? And that's what I've done. So number 4 is cultural behavior. Number 5, this is the hard one, because this one you've got to say no to a lot. What is my ideal client? Who are they? What do they look like? What niche market are they? What behavior traits are they? You know, absolute A-class clients. If you've got scarcity mentality, you'll accept all. If you've got abundance mentality, then you will say no to a bunch because they don't fit. You think about your current client base now and you go, righto, let's have a look at it. We've got the A players, we've got the Bs, the Cs, and the Zs, right? We've got everyone in there as far as who do you really want around you? You know, I'm a big fan of niche markets, on industry specialization, you know, because once you make these rules on client types, the next client may not fit, so you've got to say no, even if it's a referral from a good client, right?
Yeah.
This is the hard one.
Well, to take a step back, because these are 5 really big questions. I mean, and that's what you said. So I guess for people listening, what do you think is the minimum amount of time they should spend to get a early rough draft? Not the perfection, we're going to frame it and, you know, but, you know, I got everything out of my head and I just went with it.
2 or 3 hours. 2 or 3 hours.
Wow.
To ask them, answer them properly. It's a Sunday afternoon with your favorite beverage in hand, quiet time, or just a period of time, 2 or 3 hours. Every time, I've done it 3 times now in my career, the same 5 questions. It's a good few hours, you know, can be more.
Well, I think what's interesting about, you know, spend 3 hours, change the direction of your life. You know, when I hear 2 or 3 hours, to me, very obtainable for a listener. to say, you know what, I'm going to block off my calendar, go offline, go into some strange nook and cranny of my house or office, or maybe we're allowed back in public when you're listening to this, so you can go to your favorite
Yeah.
coffee shop, whatever, and do it. I mean, this is an afternoon. This is a morning. This is when you
Yeah.
think best, carve out the time and do it.
Yeah.
Later this month, later this quarter, I wouldn't delay too much, but yeah, I think everybody can find a couple hours.
So David, the answer to the 5 questions, coming up with the answers is not that hard, right? It's actually the execution and sticking to the rules is the hard bit. That's the hard piece. Saying no to that next prospect, no, we're not going to do that service. Sorry, this is the price. So think about the order of the questions, right? Number 1, business life, right? Me. Number 2, my numbers. What do I want? And this is a good one for partnerships, for alignment as well. Number 3, these are the products. Number 4, these are the people and style of people. Number 5, these are the clients, right? Business by design goes that way, 1 through 5. Business by default goes the other way, 5 through 1. Business by default starts with, we get these clients. Okay, cool. Right, we need some more people. Where do we find the people from, right? And far out, government's changed the rules again. We're going to do this lurch towards these products and services. No, geez, my numbers suck and my life sucks as well. Right? So business by design goes 1 through 5. Business by default goes 5 through 1.
Yeah, and I know we're going to be butting up against time. I mean, there's so much to dig into, but let's say we define these. Do you have a trying to think of what's the next step, right? Like what's maybe the first little baby step you could take to kind of running this business by design?
Yeah, well, first of all, we've got to unpack, how strict these rules are and what you've got going on today, right? So, because most firms are nowhere near what they believe they want to achieve on those 5 questions, right? So, hard to answer that exactly, but I will give you, 4 key areas to focus on, and then we'll start to wrap, David. And by the way, in the book, this is all in detail in the book, so you can pick up the book. Just go to robnixon.com or David, you've got your address on there. So the 4 areas. Number 1, we've got to fix day-to-day operations today, right? So pricing, packaging, moving away from project packaging to recurring revenue packaging, accounts receivable, our customer service program, our communication program, fix, right? Number 1, fix what's happening today. We're not going to grow this sucker, any more than we need to until we fix operations today, right? Because it's pointless piling on or doing another acquisition if the current one doesn't work so well in the first place. Number 2 is minimize. We're going to minimize time dramatically, get super efficient with the work. So workflow management, time budgets on jobs, the technology stack for the clients and for the firm, systems, processes, etc. Right? Think of minimizing time like manufacturing a product. We want to do this with speed because in fix we've fixed the prices. One of the things we've fixed. Our objective is to do it as fast as possible, right? So, and this is where the likes of Jetpack come in with better tools, better tech to speed up the workflow process and to monitor it properly. So number 2 is minimize. By the time we've fixed operations, and both minimize and fix go hand in hand, we've got a smoother running ship. And that might take 6 months, might take 12. Step 3, scale. Now we're in a position to really ramp up the marketing. And part of scale happens as part of fix, but if we're going to say, righto, we've fixed the day-to-day operations, running much smoother, turnaround time's faster, average hourly rate is up, everyone's on a fixed fee by the month or by the project, preferably by the month. Now we can grow the revenue, and we've already grown the revenue in this process as well, grow the revenue with the absolute ideal client. So we pile on the branding, the marketing, the lead generation, the sales process, sales skills, new products, etc. under scale. And then step 4, and step 4, all these are, they're not sequential steps, they're not 1, 2, 3, 4. They are happening all together at the same time, but you are spending more energy on some more than others, at the appropriate time, depending on where the firm's at. And step 4 is lead, which is, leading this business to the direction you want it to be. So we're talking about the plan, right? We're talking about organizational structure, vision, mission, goals. We're talking about reporting, accountability. We're talking about the team culture rolled out, team performance, we're talking about themes, meeting rhythms, all that sort of stuff under lead. So depends on where the firm's at, and you'll get more detail in the book, of course. But if I was coaching a firm, we'd do a full analysis first to go, we need to do this part first with you, because you've already done that part or whatever it happens to be. So, yeah.
Perfect. Well, Rob, I appreciate you coming on. And if somebody wants to reach out, you mentioned the book. I know you do a lot of content. What is the best way for somebody listening to connect with you?
Just go to robnixon.com, robnixon.com. There's always a free something at the front. At the moment, it's the book, so you can get the book there. You can have a read. There's a blog there. It connects to YouTube channel, LinkedIn. Just find me, Rob Nixon, on LinkedIn. I've got tons and tons of articles on there. But just go to the website, robnixon.com, and have a meander through there is probably the best way.
Perfect. And if you couldn't write down everything, you were running, crawling, hopping, skipping, running, jumping, whatever you were doing, you couldn't write everything down from today's interview. It's going to be at jetpackworkflow.com/blog, jetpackworkflow.com/blog. We're going to do 1,000+ word write-up of the interview. We're going to link up Rob's website, his books. You mentioned other books like Prosperity Playbook and some of his clients. We can link them up as much as we can on that. And if you enjoyed this interview, share it with a firm owner that might need to hear these 5 questions. And if you really loved it, leave a review. We'll bring on more people like Rob. And Rob, thanks again for coming on.
All the best. Good luck.